One complaint that people have about this type of aluminum stand is that it tends to slide on the bench, especially if you have a very smooth surface. It will slide as you're doing work, or maybe because of the rotation from the motor, it may slide across the bench, which is not a good thing. One thing you can do is set it on something rubber like this. This is actually a small drainer tray that's used to put your dishes on after you wash your dishes next to the sink. And this works as an excellent surface to keep your lathe setup from moving around the bench. Another added benefit of this is that as you're working on the lathe and you're turning material here in your headstock, you might get a lot of chips and debris that fall down, and they'll fall down in this tray and not so much make a mess all over your bench. So then all you need to do is take the lathe off this tray, take the tray with all your scraps and so forth that's sitting on here, and just dump it right in the trash. So it also helps it to make it easy for easy cleanup. Let's talk further about what we need to look for when buying a lathe. First thing is you want to make sure that you've got an 8mm lathe, American D-bed lathe. That's what this one is here. And then look at the overall condition of what's being offered to you. Is it painted or is it nickel plated? This one here is nickel plated. And look at the condition of the finish. Is it all rusty and dirty and chipping? And because some of these were painted, but most of them were nickel plated, and some were painted at the factory, especially during World War II when nickel plating and nickel was at a premium due to the war. But many people also painted their lathes because the plating was so bad, and some of them painted their lathes because they didn't like the glare. You can get a lot of glare, especially if you're working for a long period of time on your lathe, and depending on your lighting, you could get a lot of glare off the surface. So in order to reduce that, some people painted their lathes. Now you don't want to have the bed painted. I mean, you can paint the sides, you can paint all your attachments here, but the surface of the bed should not be painted. If the surface of the bed is painted, that's not a good thing. Now another thing is, the lathe that you're looking at, does it look fresh from, let's say, frequent use? Is it clean, or does it look like it's been recently oiled? Does it look rusty, dirty, dusty from being stored in someone's attic for an extended period of time? So you need to examine all the previously mentioned parts in that same fashion as to the condition. And also another thing too is that you need to look at the different parts. I'm talking about the headstock, the tailstock, and the tool rest. Do they look like they're a matched set, or do they look like they may have been taken from other different lathes? And sometimes you can tell that by the look of the nickel plating, if one looks totally different than the other, or maybe the styling looks very different. So that may be an indication that you've got a mix and match. Now that's not always a bad thing, because aesthetically it may not look good, but it may function just fine. So that's one other thing you need to keep in mind. Another thing that you want to look for is if there's any matching serial numbers. Now this doesn't have a serial number, someone put some identification numbers on here, but look at the bottom and see if there's a serial number. Look at the bed down in between or in the front if there's a serial number, and look at the bottom of your headstock to see if there's a serial number. And if there is, and they're all matching, then you know you've got an exact match set from the factory, and that's a good thing, and that's added value. But not all of them were marked with serial numbers, so that's not always an automatic indicator of something superior. But if you do have matched set, that's definitely a plus, and you know for sure that it all came that way from the factory.